Big questions surround Zack Selmon's future at Mississippi State. Is he staying put or eyeing the exit? Here's what he just revealed.
You are Locked On Mississippi State, your daily podcast on the Mississippi State Bulldogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Jaron Spor. I'm a national college football writer at Athlon Sports. That's Landon McBride. We've got a fun show for you today, so sit back and have some fun with us. We, like I said, we're going to talk about Zack Selmon, but we're also going to talk about the SEC Media Day. We have the Mississippi State officially announced their attendees for the Media Day that kicks off next week, so we'll talk about that. And then we've got an update on a crucial commitment in the wide receiver room. So another offensive player, he is committing later on this week, and we're going to talk about his recruitment, kind of give an update on that as well. But first, we got to get into Zack Selmon. So obviously, we've talked about him possibly taking the Oklahoma job, the athletic director job, after Joe Castiglione announced his retirement. The kind of obvious one has been Zack Selmon replacing him because of his history with Oklahoma, his family's history with Oklahoma. It just made the most sense. But he has put out a tweet, and it was kind of a long statement. And this is what he said. He said this
premium.
What was that?
He's paying for premium.
He is. He's definitely paying for premium. He said this past week, two titans in our industry and influential mentors in my life, Joe Castiglione and Bubba Cunningham, announced new chapters and journeys in their futures. Some people go their entire careers without finding an elite mentor like Joe or Bubba, but I am blessed beyond measure to have a front row seat in watching not just one, but two game changers and difference makers positively transform lives, their communities, and fan bases for the better. I carry these invaluable lessons with me each day here at Mississippi State. Overwhelmed with gratitude to these two for paving the way for so many. I tip my cap to the two of the best, Bubba, UNC, and Sooner AD. So he tagged both of them. What is your thoughts after hearing that?
Hadn't really changed much since when this news broke. I still think if he's offered it, he is going to think long and hard about it.
Yes.
Like we mentioned, his ties, and I was reading Stuart Mandel's mailbag, and someone asked him this very question: who is going to replace Joe Castiglione? And he said the obvious favorite is Selmon.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this does seem like, and you never know, because being an AD in this situation, you're kind of like a politician. You have to say the right things until it's time to leave. So it does sound like he is very committed to what is happening at Mississippi State, but that also doesn't mean that if OU comes calling, he's not going to pick up the phone and pack his bags.
Yeah, I mean, he tried to hint that, like, hey, I'm not going anywhere because I'm going to carry these lessons I learned here at Mississippi State. But he didn't say he wasn't going anywhere. The thing that Landon and I took away from it from the start was it's not a no.
It's not a no. It's not a yes. He didn't even say he has no plans as of yet. So we're in that weird, wait and see, read the tea leaves kind of thing. And I mean, he just says he carries the lessons with him each day here. Not even like, I'm going to, use this to better this situation in the future. And that's definitely me reading way too much into it. But, he doesn't even say anything about his future at Mississippi State in this. So if you want to dig real deep and try to pull something from it, you can pull that from it. But again, he also doesn't say, I'm ready to go back.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, just kind of reading through it, it kind of reminds me of a head coach who says, I'm not going to take that job. And the next thing you know, they take the job.
Yeah, it does a little bit.
Even that's a little more definitive. Or you get the head coach that's like, I like where I'm at kind of thing. And then the next thing you know, money talks and he's gone. But I just, reading it doesn't tell me, like, it doesn't make me feel as a Mississippi State fan, okay, he's staying. We're good. And again, Oklahoma, the reports out of Oklahoma is they're going to kind of go outside the box for this hire. I don't know what that means. It kind of sounds like they might be trying to look for a business type guy, for the job, because we talked about this. The athletic director is a totally different position now than when Joe Castiglione took over. I mean, the athletic director was literally over the whole athletic department, and nowadays your general manager is kind of over your football team, and then they got general managers for basketball and so on and so forth. They kind of run the show there, and the athletic director's job is to do the fundraising part. And that's one reason why I think Zack Selmon would be a great get for that job, is because we've seen the fundraising job he's done.
Yeah.
He would connect with the older fans at Oklahoma because of his last name, and then he would connect with the newer because of his obviously young age. And so I think he would be excellent for that. But if they went outside the box, Selmon might not be the hire, or is outside the box meaning they're going to go with someone with not a lot of experience, and Selmon would fit that. That's a hard part.
Outside the box could mean a lot of things. And to reference that question earlier for that Stuart Mandel answered, his one outside the box thing was Mountain West Commissioner Gloria Navarez. I'm guessing on that last name. She worked under Castiglione for 4 years back in the day. So, I mean, that would definitely be out of the box, going with someone who is a Power 5 commissioner, or I mean, not Power 5, Group of 5 commissioner to come run a athletic department. But that could be exactly what you need in this new day and age with everything constantly moving. You had someone who saw how it operated from, the 40,000 foot view. So it's hard to say right now. We're so early in this process, and I really feel this is not going to be the last tweet we talk about on this show related to this, whether it's from Selmon or from someone at Mississippi State or at OU, or, from a reporter saying, oh, this has been decided, and then it hasn't. We're at the beginning of a very long road. Yeah, no, I agree. And it's just, again, we talked about this when we first talked about it on was it Monday's podcast or I think it was Tuesday's podcast. This is going to be a story for a while. Until Oklahoma makes an announcement of who they're hiring, this is going to be a continued story. I mean, it just is. And so there's going to be more statements. There's going to be more reading into tweets. There's going to be more, there's going to be a lot of stuff. Yeah, there's going to be flight tracking. I can't wait for flight tracking season. That's always a lot of fun season. Hey, that's how we found out Brian O'Connor was coming, and it was right. That was a correct flight tracker. So we'll see what ends up happening. But it also is going to be interesting because now we're going to have to kind of follow Oklahoma and follow what they're doing, because them saying that they're going to kind of go outside the box, like they have Randall Stevenson, who was like the runner. He ran AT&T forever, and he's been with the department. And apparently it was kind of his idea to go to the NFL model of a GM and all this kind of things. And it was a really innovative step, especially for college football. And they got kind of ahead of the curve by doing it. Do they go? And I know he's running the search, so maybe he's not going to be the one that gets hired, but someone like that, he was the one that was really pursued Jim Nagy from reports. Right. And that was obviously a great get for them. So is he the one that kind of will run it? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what they do. But from what it sounds like, they're not just going to hire someone because they have Oklahoma ties. Although the history of that school says they will. We saw with Brent Venables, so, him being there. And so we'll just see. We'll just see what happens. Yeah, and when they say outside the box, I mean, Joe's been there. I can't remember how many years, forever. So someone outside the box from that situation is pretty much anyone else. Mm-hmm. I mean, when you've been running the same ship for so long, outside the box is everything. Yeah. Yeah, and that's right. And it also is in this new era. It's just, again, it's going to, I think before we everyone had a description of an athletic director. Yeah, now it's right. And now it's kind of a case by case basis, because there are still some teams that are behind the curve and don't have a GM. Now they should, need to have one, but there's some that don't have it. Well, the teams that don't have it, their athletic director has to serve like an athletic director. Like they can't be hands off and only doing the fundraising stuff. So it's going to be a case by case basis. And Oklahoma is at the point where they don't need a traditional athletic director. And so maybe that doesn't boost Zack Selmon. But again, the one thing I keep coming back to with Selmon and why he makes so much sense is because he's done so well with the fundraising part. And because of his last name, he's going to connect with the old donors. And then because of his age, he's going to connect with the newer guys too. So it's just makes a lot of sense. But yeah, going off his statement,
I don't think you should feel better if you're a Mississippi State fan that he's not
Don't
going.
feel
I
worse,
still
though.
think if he's offered, he's gone.
Yeah, I mean, you can't feel worse either, because it's still kind
Right.
of, it's a nothing statement in terms of his future. But yeah, I mean,
Right.
his name combined with what we've seen he can do is the perfect storm for OU to, target him. So, I mean, it's a rough place to be in as a Mississippi State fan. It makes you hope they do go way outside the box, because he's
Yeah.
doing a great job here and you want to see him continue to build here. But I don't know. We're definitely in wait and see, and soon we'll be in flight
Well,
tracks.
I was about to say, yeah, it sucks because we're in the wait and see mode, and the reports out of Norman are it's not going to be a quick process,
No.
nor should it be, especially with him staying for the whole academic season. You don't have to rush to make a decision.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's not going to be quick. You're going to have to sit around and sit around some more and wait. And so we'll see what ends up happening. But unless he comes out and says he's out of the running, he's not taking it, I'm not feeling good or bad. I'm just going to keep with the process. But
Nope.
all right, Mississippi State announced its SEC Media Day attendees, and there's one that caught my eye. We'll talk about that. That's coming up next. Well, summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling with FanDuel? You can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I have a lot of friends that use FanDuel, and they love to track their favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. For me, my favorite part is it's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether I'm placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet right into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. I've talked about this many times, especially during basketball season. Basketball is my favorite sport. Football is probably my favorite sport to watch, but basketball is the sport I grew up playing the most. During basketball, I love making same-game parlays, and I have a lot of friends that love it for the football too. I don't do it as much for football, but for basketball, that's my favorite part. You see a guy starting to get a hot hand early, you jump on that bet real quick, or you see a guy that's kind of struggling. Maybe he has a history struggling in those kind of games. You place a bet on that as well. So that's my favorite part. But if you're new to FanDuel, listen up. New customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day. A part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, so SEC Media Days kicks off next week. July 16th is the day that Mississippi State, I believe that I have that right. Wednesday, July 16th is when Mississippi State is going to be featured in it. And they announced who is going. And two of them are not a surprise, but one kind of caught me off guard a little bit. Blake Shapen, quarterback.
Yeah.
There's not many teams that aren't taking a quarterback. And if you aren't taking a quarterback, it's either because you're in a quarterback battle or that doesn't say good things about your quarterback.
Yeah.
Isaac Smith, again, ton of sense, leader of the defense. But then the other one is the one that caught my eye, and that's wide receiver Brennan Thompson. That's transfer wide receiver from Oklahoma, Brennan Thompson. I know he has some history with Jeff Lebby. He was there 1 year with Lebby. But anytime a transfer comes in and is able to basically be the face of your team, if you're taking them to media days, they're now the face of your team. And for you to look at him like a leader, look at him as a leader that much where you want him to come to that, again, maybe it's some of the ties with Oklahoma, but that says a lot about Brennan Thompson as a player.
Yeah, it does. And I remember back when we were reading some of the quotes coming out of spring camp where a lot of the younger receivers were talking about how there was a lot of leadership in the wide receiver room. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess this is kind of proof positive that actually is happening from the coach's side as well.
And maybe that's it, because remember we talked about the wide receiver room, that they lost a ton of talent, and it's pretty much a makeshift transfer portal room. So maybe that is it. There was a lot of leaders in the room, and they had to pick one of the transfers. That could have been it.
Could have been it. And, he probably stepped up. He is, he's an older player, not 1 year in the league, transferred, that kind of thing. So he probably did step up. We've seen it. And the ties with Lebby probably don't hurt, because even if he hasn't been, like in this situation before, Levy does have a longer relationship with him than other players. So it might be a trust factor there. Like he knows he's not going to say anything that's going to get anybody in trouble, not going to say anything out of, that's going to make headlines for the wrong reasons. And there's probably some of that to it. So I would say it's probably a combination of being a leader and then just a little bit of extra trust from having that extended relationship.
Yeah, and when he ended up deciding to transfer to Mississippi State, I knew a little bit about him, obviously. So I did but I had to go back and do some research about who he was as a player. And he was actually asked to do a lot of media sessions for Oklahoma last year. And a lot of that was their top 5 wide receivers were out. So he was kind of the next guy in line. But even before the season, before all those injuries became known that they were going to be out for as much as they were, he was doing a lot of the media sessions, and he was a voice back then that seemed like he had some leadership qualities about him. So if you go back and read those comments from him at Oklahoma, it's not a big surprise that he's now taking this leap to being a leader for Mississippi State. But it's still always surprising to me when new guys on the team, whether it's a freshman, whether it's a transfer, get pegged to go. And sometimes it is because you lost a lot, or this coach just came here and brought some players with them, and these are the players he trusts. Obviously Colorado is a great example. Shadur Sanders was a big person at Media Days both times. Granted, it's his son, but Travis Hunter was there too, and so he's like a son to him as well. But it was because these guys came with him already, and so that he has the continuity with them. But yeah, I mean, anytime you have a transfer come in and is doing that, I would say it's a positive. There's some that say it's a negative because that means the guys there weren't very good leaders. That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. But I think in this case, just going back off of his history at Oklahoma, it's a good thing.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I can see how you can come across and say, oh, this isn't good. It just means there was kind of for lack of a better term, a power vacuum. Right. And you have a guy who stepped up and filled it. And he seems like, based off the interviews and just kind of what we heard, from those quotes, that he did actually step up and fill it. And this isn't we have to take someone else, let's take him kind of thing. This is actually someone who became a leader and not someone who's just going because you have to take another person.
Yeah, no, I agree. So we'll see what ends up happening at Media Days. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of...
He goes up there and runs his mouth and says something wrong, and we're eating our words. But I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't think that will happen. But I think Media Days is going to be a lot of fun. It's one of my favorite. Yeah, it's one of my favorite times of year because it signals now we're really getting into the season, at least fall camp and all the stuff like that. Summer workouts are kind of wrapping up finally. So it's going to be an exciting week next week for sure. But Mississippi State has a big-time wide receiver recruit committing later on this week on Friday. What chances do they have of landing him? And who's been his biggest recruiter? We'll talk about that. That's coming up next. All right, well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, so Kavon, okay, this is I'm going to butcher this last name, but Conciauro is what I'm going to go with.
That's right.
Yeah, he's from Georgia. He's a, depending on where you look, 3 or 4 star wide receiver. It says 4-star on Rivals, so we'll go with his highest ranking, and that's 4-star.
247 has him just under a 4-star. So.
Yeah, so he's right in the ballpark. Probably a good season, going to be a consensus 4-star. Top 500 player nationally, top 75 receiver in the country, even top 65 on Rivals. He is committing on, like I said, on Friday. Mississippi State is right now the predictor to land him at 58.2% on the Rivals predictor. It's weird to say that now instead of 24/7 Sports, or instead of on 3. But he only visited 3 places. He visited Mississippi State on an official, and that was his only official visit. His other 2 visits were Georgia, obviously the home state team.
All right.
Look at this dude's offer list, okay? Mississippi State, Georgia, Georgia Tech, Ole Miss, Pittsburgh, UCF, Auburn, Georgia State threw it in, and then Florida State's been interested but never offered. needless to say, this would be a massive game.
I do have Florida State as an offer on.
Okay, so on 3, it doesn't have it, but still, I mean, that's an incredible list.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, huge list. Big guy, 6'3", depending on where you look, somewhere between 170, 190 pounds. So very large receiver, especially for, being a high school junior, probably when they measured him, getting ready for a senior year. So bringing him would be huge. And yeah, we mentioned it, big year. He's probably solidifies as a strong 4-star, not like just past the line, probably well past that line. So he's a guy you want to get in, because if he blows up, more teams might jump on board to that recruitment. I mean, which can still happen, but this is a guy you want, and, we're projected to get him right now. So hopefully that stays true.
Yeah, and so before the break, I hinted at who his biggest recruiter has been, and it has been Brody McCorder, the 4-star quarterback commit. The Maroon and White Daily, again, I've talked about them many times. They do a great job. In their Tuesday Dog Biscuit, they kind of talked about Brody McCorder. They talked to him, just kind of get an update of how everything's going. And he mentioned his recruiting efforts. And he's been in Starkville for every weekend in June to help recruit others. And obviously he had his own official visit during June 20 through 22nd. But McCorder noted that one of his main recruiting targets has been Kavon Conciauro. And so we'll end up seeing if that recruiting effort has paid off, but it's obviously something that this is the thing. Yes, players know about other players, so I don't want to say they don't, but the coaches also tell you, like, hey, this is a guy we're really high on.
Yeah.
Pitch to him why it's good to come here. So if he's been really recruiting Conciauro, that tells me that the coaches really want to win this recruiting battle.
Yeah, it's either that or Brody really likes him, or a combination of both. But yeah, it's great to do that. And like we mentioned, having a quarterback commit this early and clearly be able to clean up on the recruiting trail like Brody has, like, that is massive and makes landing him an even bigger feather in the cap of Levy and the rest of this staff, getting him in there with the way he's been able to assist in recruiting and bringing all these offensive linemen in, hopefully bringing in Conciauro, I guess. I'm still not sure how to pronounce that name. It's going to bother me until I hear it. But no, it would be a big win to bring him in, and it's been a huge win getting McCorder in the building.
And it's a bigger story if they do land it, and this is why. For years, and we talked about SEC recruiting kind of being down, Georgia recruiting hasn't. They've been great, so I'm not taking a shot when I say this. For years, Georgia has locked down their state. You don't go into Georgia and get players, especially the top players.
Right.
You don't get them. But look at this year. I'm going to go through the top 10 players in Georgia. Okay, number 1 is predicted to go to Georgia. It's not high. It's Tyler Atkinson. Clemson's right there with him. I think he announced his commitment date. But then Alabama's got the 2nd. Alabama's got the 3rd. Georgia is predicted to get the 4th. A&M's got the 5th. A&M's got the 6th. Georgia's predicted to got the 7th. And obviously, these are just commits. They're not signees yet. 8 is A&M. 9 is going to be possibly Ohio State. It's Deuce Gerald's. He's projected to go to Ohio State. And number 10 is Tennessee. So A&M's got more commits than Georgia has. And if Georgia lands all 3 that they're predicted to get, they would be tied for the number of commits.
That's crazy.
And but look at 2025. Georgia's got number 1. Georgia's got number 2. Georgia's got number 4. Georgia's got number 5. Like, Georgia locked down the state in 2020, and that's usually what it's been. And Conciaro's not top 10. I think he was number 50 something. But that's still don't act like Georgia doesn't want to lock the state down. They want to lock the state down, and they don't want a 4-star wide receiver getting out of their backyard.
No, they don't. So going in there, and it's a guy that Georgia's in on. It's not like this is a guy that Georgia has not offered, has not recruited. This is a guy that they are also trying to recruit, and that's what makes it a big win. It'd be one thing to go in there and get someone that they've overlooked. It's another to go head-to-head in their state.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen today. For your second listen, check out The Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to the college football landscape. Find The Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. I'm Jaron. Check out my work over at Athlon Sports. That's Landon. Follow us, Locked On Mississippi State. We're on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. We post daily videos Monday through Friday on YouTube. Hit that like, subscribe, ring the bell, get notified anytime we post. Tell your friends about us. With football season starting, with SEC Media Days starting, with the athletic director possibly being out the door, we're going to hope to bring you the best Mississippi State coverage. Yes. Like I said many times, we're trying to get that 1,000 subscribers on YouTube by early season. We're doing well. We're inching even closer to 600. Let's see where we're at. 584. 584. So we moved up a little bit. So we're getting there.
By the end of the week.
Yeah, let's just try to get there. So help us out. But yeah, until next time, Hail State.
Hail State.